You are a magician with what you build.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. You know, it's like I love them all for completely different reasons, and I really like cutting them up.
Aaron Kaufman did everything right, and somehow it still didn't work out the way anyone expected. After rising to fame on Fast and Loud alongside Richard Rawlings, he walked away, built his own brand, and launched new shows that looked set for long-term success. But then the momentum stopped. Projects stalled, shows disappeared, and the path he built began to unravel. So what really happened to Aaron Kaufman after leaving Fast and Loud? And why has his career taken such an unexpected turn? Join us as we uncover why things aren't looking good for Aaron Kaufman. Who he was before anyone was watching. Aaron Kaufman was working at a local Dallas garage, anonymous and skilled, when Richard Rawlings found him. Richards had founded Gas Monkey Garage in 2002 as a custom car shop in the Dallas area, building a reputation in the regional car culture before the idea of a television show entered the picture. He saw Aaron work and understood immediately that what he was looking at was not simply a competent mechanic. Aaron could take a vehicle apart and rebuild it in a way that transformed what the vehicle was, not just repaired what it had been. That is a different skill from regular shop work, and it is a rarer one. Richard brought him into the Gas Monkey fold, and Aaron became the operational backbone of everything the shop produced. When the Discovery Channel came to Richard with the idea for Fast and Loud, Aaron was already the person who made the builds happen. The show just pointed a camera at something that was already going on. Fast and Loud premiered on the Discovery Channel on June 6, 2012, and it was immediately clear that the show had two distinct personalities that needed each other to function.
So my greatest accomplishments have been my failures, because I learned how to do something the right way, or I learned how to not push so hard, or I learned how to market a different way.
Richard was the front of the house, the larger-than-life deal-maker, the enthusiastic personality who could pitch a car to a buyer in a parking lot with the energy of a carnival barker, the person the camera loved unconditionally. Aaron was the back of the house, quieter, more technical, possessed of a dry humor that emerged from under all that beard at unpredictable moments and landed consistently harder than anyone expected. Richard found the cars. Aaron made them real. The show was built on the gap between those two things, and it worked because both of them were genuine. Aaron was not performing the role of the serious mechanic. He was the serious mechanic. And the camera picked up on the difference the way audiences always pick up on the difference, which is to say, instinctively, before they can articulate why. The show worked because both men were real at what they did, and the combination was compelling. But what the cameras captured was the finished product, not the pressure it took to produce it. After 10 seasons and over 100 episodes, Aaron could feel the gap widening between the builds he was doing and the builds he wanted to do. What was the tipping point that turned "I have concerns" into "I am leaving"?
So, you know, everything that I'm chasing, everything I'm doing kind of relates all the way back to the same thing every time. It's always about, you know, making sure that we've got the quality hot rod shop. We're making a good show for Discovery.
Why he left and what he said about it. Aaron Kaufman appeared in 60 episodes of Fast and Loud across the show's first 10 seasons. He departed in 2017, in the 12th season's 10th episode, and the departure was significant enough to land in entertainment news across automotive and cable television coverage. Richard addressed it immediately in a blog post on the Gas Monkey Garage website. It is a big hit to GMG, but please note that it would be an insult to everyone here at Gas Monkey who has been putting in the work these past few years to say that we can't do it without him. The statement was gracious and diplomatically functional. It did not explain what had actually happened. Aaron explained it himself in an interview with Art of Gears shortly before the departure episode aired. "I wanted to build cars that were that big or bigger," he said. And then TV needed cars that were much smaller than that. On top of that, there were some growing personal issues and professional differences of opinion, and so I decided the time had come and I could see the fork in front of me. Later, in a 2021 interview with Restamod Air, he was more direct about the interpersonal dimension. "Richard and I were having difficulty being in the same building together. It was his building, it's his show, it's his operation." That combination, creative imprisonment and personal friction, is a difficult environment to sustain indefinitely. After 16 years of working alongside Richard, 10 of them on camera, Aaron had hit what he described as the bottom end of the type of cars I want to build. He could see the fork. He took the other road. The specific pressure of the television production model was a significant factor in the decision, and it is worth understanding in practical terms. The Fast and Loud format required approximately 12 builds in every 6-month filming period. 12 builds in 6 months is roughly 1 build per 2 weeks, which translates to over 100 hours of work per week for the mechanics actually doing the work. At that pace, the cars you can build are necessarily the cars that can be completed in 2 weeks. The cars that Aaron Kaufman actually wanted to build, the large-scale restorations and custom fabrications that require months of careful work, were simply incompatible with that timeline. He had not run out of skill or ambition. He had run out of time, and the show could not give him more of it. Leaving was not a failure. It was the only logical response to a constraint that was not going to change. Richard Rawlings, for his part, had his own version of the same problem. When he appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience in December 2020 to announce that Fast and Loud was finished, he framed the decision in terms of creative limitation at the network level, rather than anything internal.
Everybody hold on to your hat out there. Fast and Loud is no more. I have exited Discovery, and I'm a free agent.
What?
We're going to be doing some cool things in 2021.
"I signed off on all media," he said, describing the constraints of his Discovery contract. "I kind of got to the top of that mountain being at Discovery. There wasn't anything else for me to do there." Both men, in other words, left the situation because the situation had stopped being capable of containing what they needed. The show ended in 2020, 3 years after Aaron's departure, not because the ratings had collapsed, but because the man running it had decided the mountain was climbed. The show's final season had actually been its best rated in years. Aaron left, started ArcLight Fabrication, and the plan seemed solid. He was going to build the kind of cars he had always wanted to build, on his own timeline, with his own crew, for customers who understood the value of work that cannot be rushed. That plan made complete sense on paper. What happened when he tried to execute it alongside a new television show at the same time?
A lot of things happened in the wake of my leaving, and a few of the guys at the shop were let loose from the monster, from the Gas Monkey. And so I had guys that knew the program, knew what was up, and we were all homies. And
ArcLight and the television he didn't want to do. ArcLight Fabrication opened in Dallas, Texas in 2017. Aaron had been thinking about this business for years before the departure from Gas Monkey, and the concept was specific: aftermarket components and full restorations for Ford F-100 pickups from 1957 to 1979. He chose the F-100 deliberately because the market for vintage Ford truck parts was significantly underserved compared to the equivalent Chevrolet market. The aftermarket ecosystem for classic Chevy pickups was dense and competitive. The Ford side had a gap, and Aaron was positioned to fill it with the kind of quality and specificity that the dedicated Ford custom community had been waiting for. Suspension upgrades, full chassis, motor programs, custom electronics, wheels, the whole vocabulary of a serious truck build available in one place. He did not intend to return to television. He said so explicitly, and the specificity of the language he used suggests he meant it. Initially, I had left television with the intention of staying gone from television, he told Guide Live. However, my phone kept ringing to do more television. The ringing phone was Discovery. A network executive flew to Dallas specifically to have dinner with Aaron and pitch him on a new show. That dinner lasted approximately 6 hours. Aaron eventually agreed to do the show on conditions that he felt better matched his actual personality and working style. Shifting Gears with Aaron Kaufman premiered on Discovery in March 2018. It would be the last television show that Aaron Kaufman would anchor. The fundamental tension that Shifting Gears created was the same tension that had broken the Gas Monkey partnership, just relocated to a different building. Aaron was simultaneously trying to build a serious parts manufacturing business in Ford F-100 components and run a television production that required his time, attention, and physical presence on camera. He described the responsibility of being both the show's lead and the business's owner as absolutely crushing, telling D Magazine that it had affected his relationships with his girlfriend, his dogs, and his employees, in that order. He had an emergency appendectomy during filming and took only a couple of days off before resuming. He had trouble remembering when exactly the surgery had happened because the schedule had not significantly changed to accommodate it. The show ran for 2 seasons, 12 episodes total. Season 1 followed Aaron and the ArcLight crew building a 1971 International Scout into a street-legal Ultra 4 racer for the King of the Hammers event in California, a race that combines high-speed desert running with technical rock crawling at the kind of scale that makes most normal racing look gentle. It then followed him building a semi-race truck for Pikes Peak. Season 2 shifted further toward racing, ending with the Race of Gentlemen, a vintage beach drag race. The final episode of the show, which nobody knew at the time would be the final episode, included a serious accident and an injury that cast a shadow over the event. The season ended. The 3rd season was never ordered. Shifting Gears went on what the production described as an indefinite hiatus in late 2018, and the hiatus became permanent without a formal cancellation announcement. Shifting Gears ended. Aaron Needs a Job got 1 season and nothing more. And ArcLight Fabrications' social media accounts went quiet for an extended period that worried fans enough to generate a direct response from Aaron himself. What exactly happened to the business that was supposed to be the foundation of everything? And where does it actually stand today?
After doing it for a while and realizing like my success rate was reasonably high, I mean everything worked and we were understanding the concepts or starting to.
The shop that worried everyone. ArcLight Fabrications' social media presence had been a consistent indicator of the shop's health and activity since the business launched. Aaron used it to document builds, announce parts availability, share racing updates, and maintain the connection with the automotive community that his television exposure had built. So when the Instagram and Facebook accounts went largely silent around 2020 and stayed that way for an extended period, the fan community noticed. The speculation that followed was the kind that always fills an information vacuum. The shop had closed, Aaron had retired, something had gone seriously wrong. The absence of posts was read as absence of activity, and the absence of activity was read as the end of the business. Aaron addressed it directly in a July 2019 Facebook video that he captioned, "We've been inundated with messages asking if the shop has closed down. And the answer is, we're still alive and kicking." The original Dallas location and showroom had indeed closed, but the closure was a relocation rather than a shutdown. The shop moved to Grand Prairie. The disruption of a move combined with the demands of the 2 television shows and the general pace of running a specialist fabrication business, had reduced the public-facing communication to near silence, without the business itself having stopped. The clarification reassured the fans who had been watching, but the extended silence that followed, particularly after Aaron relocated to Colorado, suggested that the balance between the business's operational reality and its public visibility had become difficult to maintain. The Colorado move was significant in ways that went beyond a change of address. Aaron had developed a genuine connection to the state through his racing involvement, particularly Pikes Peak, where he had competed multiple times and where the combination of altitude, technical driving challenge, and the specific community that surrounds high-altitude motorsport had made a lasting impression. He described Colorado as a place where his quality of life was meaningfully better. He no longer had the distinctive beard that had been his most recognizable feature on television. He was, by his own account, happier than he had been during the most intense periods of his television career. But the question of what ArcLight Fabrication was doing from Colorado, while the Dallas social media presence stayed quiet and the parts business operated without significant public documentation, was one that the automotive community was left to answer through inference rather than direct communication. The pattern of ArcLight's activity during this period is consistent with what happens to a business when its founder is in transition. Some work continues, some partnerships persist. The core identity of the enterprise remains intact, but the growth and visibility that public communication generates is suspended while the person responsible for that communication is figuring out what the next chapter looks like. Aaron had hints of a new project in the works, teasing what he described as a nearly lifelong dream on his personal Instagram and sharing a glimpse of a warehouse space. The details were deliberately vague. The commitment to something larger than the current quiet was present. The something itself was not yet visible to anyone watching from the outside. The social media silence was explained, the Colorado move was made, and the hints of a new project circulated without resolution. What has Aaron Kaufman actually been doing since the television work dried up? And what does the current state of his professional life tell us about where things are actually headed? Racing, Route 66, and what comes next. Aaron Kaufman's post-television life is the story of a person who continued doing the thing he had always done, which is building and racing vehicles, without the camera rolling and without the network schedule, creating the pressure that he had consistently described as incompatible with the kind of work he actually wanted to do. He has been racing. He has competed in the King of the Hammers multiple times, an event that covers 200 miles of California desert, combining high-speed sections with rock crawling that requires the kind of sustained mechanical judgment that cannot be faked. He participated in the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb in Colorado, bringing his Ford Falcon and the semi-race truck that ArcLight built on shifting gears to the 14,000-foot finish line. The racing is not a promotional activity. It is what he does when no one is paying to watch him do it. The Route 66 project that he teased in 2023 represents the most concrete indication of where his attention has been directed during the quieter period. Route 66, the highway that runs from Chicago to Santa Monica and carries with it the full mythology of 20th century American road culture, is a natural environment for a person whose professional identity has always been built around vintage vehicles and the specific stories they contain. The project, as described through fragments on his personal Instagram, involves vintage trucks and the kind of long-duration engagement with a subject that is simply impossible to achieve within a television production schedule. Whether it becomes a book, a documentary, a series of YouTube content, or something else entirely has not been made clear. What is clear is that it represents the kind of project that Aaron left Gas Monkey to pursue, something he cares about deeply on his own timeline, without the machinery of cable television production accelerating the pace to the point where the work stops being worth doing. At SEMA 2024, Aaron made a public appearance that signaled continued engagement with the automotive industry at the level of its most significant annual gathering. He announced involvement with OCC The Next Chapter, a new show about American custom car and motorcycle culture featuring legendary builder Paul Teutul Sr. of Orange County Choppers fame, alongside Noel Guglielmi from the Fast and Furious franchise. The announcement suggested that Aaron's appetite for television was not permanently extinguished, only redirected toward formats and partnerships that felt more consistent with who he actually was rather than what Discovery had needed him to be. The difference between those two things had cost him the Gas Monkey partnership and the Shifting Gears renewal. Understanding that difference seems to be the work of this chapter of his career. His net worth, estimated at between $8 and $12 million in 2025, reflects a body of work that extends across television contracts, the ArcLight fabrication business, racing endorsements, consulting relationships with companies like MagnaFlow, and the ongoing royalties and licensing from Fast and Loud syndication that continues to run in markets around the world. The financial picture is not the picture of someone in trouble, in the conventional sense. The professional picture is the picture of someone who made a series of choices that each made individual sense, but that collectively produced a trajectory toward less visibility, less institutional support, and more personal autonomy than the television career had offered. Whether that trade is a problem depends entirely on what you believe Aaron Kaufman was trying to achieve when he made those choices. Do you think Aaron Kaufman made the right call leaving Fast and Loud when he did? And do you think he will ever find a television format that actually suits who he is? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.